I'd always heard that no one could be hypnotized to do something against their will. That sounded true, until I realized there might be a way to change your will itself. If that's possible, hypnotizing you to do something becomes much easier. It sounds like bad sci-fi, but trust me, it happened to me. I grew up like any other boy, playing sports, climbing trees, doing typical guy stuff. I dated, fell in love, and got married. I thought married life would be much like being single, me doing guy things, her handling the house. I cut the grass, took out the trash, and spent weekends watching sports while she cleaned, did laundry, and cooked. That arrangement felt fair to me. If my wife complained, I'd remind her she was just doing what was expected of a woman, and it wasn't my fault she was born female. That always made her furious, and she'd vow to make me pay. I wasn't worried. I was certain I'd never change, and there was nothing she could do about it. At least, that's what I thought. One day, after finishing my chores, the dishes done and put away, laundry sorted and folded, buttons sewn back on her suits, I sat down to write what changed me. Rachel was taking me out to dinner, so I didn't have to worry about cooking. How did she manage to change my thinking? She used hypnosis to make me stop resisting doing woman's work. Remember how I said no one can be hypnotized against their will? I tried hard to resist, but Rachel found a way to weaken my defenses, and got her revenge. Now, I'm happy to help around the house. The idea of doing what used to be woman's work doesn't bother me at all. Rachel got her revenge by turning her husband into a confident woman. I used to wear size 36 pants, had a 16-inch neck, and worked out in our basement gym to stay fit. I still work out, but my shape has changed. Now I wear a size 9 dress, have a 25-inch waist, a 34-inch bust, and my short brown hair is now a pretty auburn that curls around my shoulders. You might wonder, how could hypnosis change a man into a woman? It wasn't instant, but I'll explain. Rachel's plan started one evening at a hypnotist show. We went with my parents, her brother, and his wife. The hypnotist was entertaining, putting couples on stage and telling one man he was a cat while his wife was a dog. They spent minutes barking and hissing at each other. Another couple played mother and son, with the mother scolding her boy for an imaginary rip in his pants. It was hilarious. Near the end, the hypnotist asked me, my brother, and dad to come on stage. We're all pretty macho, sure we couldn't be hypnotized. The last thing I recall is focusing on a spot in the audience, then hearing applause. When we left the stage, women were wiping tears of laughter. Apparently, I was quacking like a duck, my brother acted like a dog at my dad's feet, and dad happily played along, scratching his dog's belly and making him fetch sticks. It wasn't until later I learned Rachel had arranged for a hidden post-hypnotic suggestion for us, triggered by our wives so they could hypnotize us again. Each of us was told that whenever our wives said a certain word or phrase, we'd instantly slip into a trance, becoming putty in their hands. Rachel was the first to try on me. She got me to do silly things like on stage, but no command could break my mindset until she spoke with a friend who's a research chemist. That's when she found the key to breaking my resistance. Her friend had been developing a drug designed to calm violent prisoners. Once given, the prisoners could be easily controlled through simple suggestion, making the guards' jobs much safer. The remarkable part was that the drug absorbed quickly through the skin and acted immediately. It could be mixed with water and sprayed from a distance or applied to objects prisoners would touch. Rachel used the latter method. She coated every piece of exercise equipment I owned. There was no way I could avoid contact, so all she had to do was wait. One day, after a workout, I came back to find Rachel grinning. When I asked why, she said something that didn't make sense, and suddenly I was putting away the last of a stack of dishes I'd just washed and dried. I tried to get an explanation, but Rachel only smiled, saying I'd insisted on doing the dishes. I'd never done dishes before and had no idea why I'd suddenly want to. Even stranger, nearly 90 minutes had passed without my awareness. These episodes kept happening, driving me crazy. I'd be watching the game, then suddenly find myself putting away the vacuum after sweeping the rugs. One Saturday, I asked Rachel when dinner would be ready, and 2 hours later I was at the table, wearing pot holders and holding a roast fresh from the oven. This went on for weeks and then got worse. One night I planned to meet the guys at a bar but woke up unclothed in bed with a very pleased wife, who kissed me and called me the world's greatest lover. You'd think I'd remember that, right? But I didn't. Rachel's brother Michael said I called him to cancel, though he can't recall my reason. He does remember spending the evening watching what he called a wonderfully romantic movie with his wife, odd, since he hates romantic movies and wouldn't willingly watch one. One of the oddest moments came when I asked Rachel what she planned for dinner. Hours later, I was standing by the stove taking cooking lessons that she swears I asked for, while wearing a ruffled white apron tied around my neck and waist. I quickly took it off but felt an unexplainable pang of regret. As months passed, these blackouts became more frequent. Sometimes I faintly recalled asking to help with chores or cooking. I feared I was losing my mind, but Rachel reassured me everything was fine. Things were going so well for Rachel that she decided to take her revenge further. I'll never forget the day at work when I went into the men's room, unzipped, and discovered I was wearing a pair of Rachel's panties. I rushed to a stall, pulled my pants down, and confirmed it, they were her nylon panties. That evening, Rachel asked if I'd enjoyed wearing her panties. She says I told her all my underwear was in the wash and asked to borrow hers. When I showed her neatly folded men's underwear in my drawer, she gave me a puzzled look and asked why I'd want to borrow hers. Strange things kept happening without reason. One day in the shower, I realized I'd just shaved my underarms. Looking down, I noticed the only hair left was a neatly trimmed patch of pubic hair. Not a single strand remained beneath my chin. Rachel happened to come in for a shower then and, after inspecting me, asked what made me want to shave all my body hair. I had no answer, I just stood there, razor in hand, looking clueless. Things went on like that for months until one Saturday afternoon when things took a serious turn. Rachel and I were watching TV when her sister-in-law Diane came in with a woman friend. She introduced Lauren to us, and we all sat down to chat. Lauren was stunning, in a short leather skirt and silky white blouse, her long legs stretching out in high heels. I couldn't stop thinking how amazing it would be to be with her. I even warned Diane to watch out around Rachel's brother Michael, fearing he might run off with Lauren. Diane laughed and said there wasn't much risk, after all, Lauren was Michael. Then Lauren gently removed her wig and smiled at me. Rachel muttered something, and suddenly I realized the gorgeous woman I'd been admiring was actually my brother-in-law in disguise. I remember wanting to ask Michael what was going on, but I got no answer. The next thing I knew, 6 hours had passed and I was looking at a beautiful woman who just happened to be my wife's brother. A strange feeling hit when my leg brushed against the chair. I looked down and saw a woman's hand with long red nails rubbing a nylon-covered leg. Then it struck me, the hand was mine, and the leg was mine too. I stood and was shocked to find myself dressed in a short, tight black skirt, a red blouse, stockings, and high heels. I ran to the mirror and saw a woman with flawless makeup and curly brown hair staring back. The women burst into hysterical laughter, while I suddenly started to cry. Rachel came over, helped me smooth my skirt, and led me back to the chair. Yes, I actually smoothed out the skirt like a woman. I began yelling, demanding to know what was happening. Rachel whispered something in my ear, and then I woke up trembling the next morning. When she asked what was wrong, I described the terrible dream where Michael and I were both dressed up as women. Rachel gave me a strange look and asked if there was something I wanted to confess. I was clueless, but she reminded me about wearing her panties, using hair remover, and shaving my legs and underarms. After hearing about my dream, she wondered if it was some kind of fantasy. I screamed at her, called her nasty names, and insisted I was all man. I said I'd prove it. I lunged to grab her, intending to throw her on the bed, but 2 hours later we were lying together, and I felt amazing. I told her her perfume was turning me on again. Rachel grinned, and when I looked down, I nearly had a heart attack. I was lying there wearing a short pink nightgown trimmed with lace, the same one I'd insisted she wear when I was feeling particularly lustful, though I had no idea how I ended up in it. I reached beneath it and found I was also wearing matching lace panties, and the perfume was mine, not hers. Before I could react, Rachel was all over me, telling me what a wild thing I'd been and that I could wear anything of hers whenever I wanted. After another hour of passionate lovemaking, I got up and changed. I had no clue why I'd worn her clothes or perfume, nor did I remember the intensity she described. I was sure I was losing my mind and told Rachel, who suggested I see our family doctor. I planned to call first thing Monday. Rachel insisted on coming with me to the doctor, who was a friend of hers. Surprisingly, having Rachel there comforted me. I explained my memory lapses but avoided details about what seemed to happen during them. Rachel held my hand like a child and told the doctor everything, about helping with housework, my dream, and wearing Rachel's clothes. The doctor gave me a thorough exam and said she believed it was connected to the vasectomy I had just before all this started. She suggested I might feel that the vasectomy diminished my manhood, causing me to suppress memories of what I saw as unmanly things that I subconsciously felt I should do. She also thought I couldn't face this truth, so I projected the problem onto Rachel's brother. She gave Rachel a prescription to help me regain control over my feelings and memories. I took the medication faithfully, and the doctor was right. Soon I felt calmer and better than I had in a long time. One night, a few weeks later, Rachel and I were about to make love when she asked me for a favor. Probably too turned on to think clearly, I quickly agreed to anything she wanted. Before I knew it, I was agreeing to wear her nightgown and panties again. For some reason, it didn't seem like a big deal, and I didn't even mind when she sprayed perfume on me. This time, I remembered every passionate moment, and it struck me as the best intimacy I'd ever had. I lasted longer than ever and peaked several times before falling asleep, exhausted but still wearing the nightgown and panties. Since it was Saturday, we stayed in bed longer and made love several more times before hunger finally pushed Rachel to get up and cook breakfast. Feeling the urge to help, I slipped on one of Rachel's robes and a pair of her slippers and followed her to the kitchen. While breakfast cooked, Rachel, much to my delight, caressed me through the silky fabric of the nightgown and panties. It felt so good I begged her to turn off the stove so we could make love right there in the kitchen. She kissed me and said her macho stud would just have to wait. If even in a nightgown and panties she called me a macho stud, I must be the greatest lover alive. In the weeks that followed, I found myself helping more and more around the house. I couldn't imagine why I had insisted Rachel do everything before. It wasn't so bad. I didn't even mind watching romantic movies with her, and after a few, I actually enjoyed them. I even found myself blinking back tears once or twice. One morning while getting ready for work, I noticed Rachel's lingerie drawer open. Without thinking, I grabbed a pair of her panties. Just as I was pulling them on, Rachel walked in, smiled, and said she hoped it meant we'd make love that night. I kissed her quickly, promised another night of passionate lovemaking, and finished dressing. All day, I was aware of the silky panties I wore and, though I hated to admit it, they felt wonderful. I even made a mental note to wear them more often. After all, look what they'd done for my intimate life. For the next 2 weeks, I wore Rachel's panties every day and enjoyed incredible lovemaking every night. I thought about calling Michael to brag about my renewed intimate life, but wasn't sure how to explain the nightgown and panties, and besides, why should I expect him to care? He wasn't the super stud I was. After 2 weeks of wearing her panties day and night, Rachel surprised me one morning by suggesting I add pantyhose. She coyly said that if the feel of nylon around my butt turned me on, imagine how I'd feel with my entire lower body encased in nylon. I thought about it for a moment. Why would a normal guy like me wear panties and pantyhose to work? But for the incredible fun I'd have later, I snatched the pantyhose from her and pulled them up my legs. Intimacy was amazing once again. I suggested all kinds of new ways to make love. We explored every room in the house and positions I'd only dreamed about. It never occurred to me to wonder why Rachel's lingerie had become such a turn-on. One weekend, while cleaning out old clothes to donate, Rachel began kissing me and nibbling my earlobe. I was getting worked up when she asked if I'd try on one of her outfits. For a moment, I considered saying no, but part of me really wanted to, so I agreed. Rachel promised it would be fun and pulled out one of her gray business suits. I'd always thought she looked sharp in it, and now the idea of wearing it excited me. I started to take off my shirt and pants when she tapped my shoulder and said she had a few more things to go with the suit. My eyes widened, and my heart raced as I took the lingerie she held out. I quickly stripped off my underwear, slipped on the panties and stockings, then asked Rachel to help with the bra. Moments later, I was hooked into a bra and holding my arms up while Rachel slid a slip over me. I picked a pretty white blouse with a floppy pink bow from her closet, buttoned it up, stepped into a knee-length pleated skirt, tucked in the blouse, and fastened the skirt at my waist. I should have felt silly or even stupid standing there in my wife's clothes, but she kept telling me how cute I looked and kissed me, making me forget I was a guy in a skirt. I looked in the full-length mirror and started giggling. Yes, giggling. Me, macho stud, standing in my wife's suit and lingerie, giggling. Rachel pulled me down onto the bed and began seducing me, running her hand up and down my legs. At first, when she reached under my skirt, I stopped her and giggled, saying I wasn't that kind of girl. But soon my skirt was pulled up, my lingerie was down, and I was that kind of girl. Several hours later, I was curled up in Rachel's arms, wearing only a bra and panties, fast asleep. I woke up before Rachel and felt pretty shaken seeing how I was dressed. I got out of bed, and by the time I finished in the bathroom, Rachel was awake, telling me she couldn't imagine anything better than what we had just shared. She started kissing and fondling me again, asking if I enjoyed it too. I kissed her back and said we should do it again sometime. Rachel smiled and promised that once the housework was done, we'd get back to our little game, and this time, it would be even better. I reached to take off the bra and panties, but Rachel stopped me and asked if I'd keep them on a little longer. I wasn't thrilled about it, but since it meant so much to her, and after all the fun we'd had, I agreed. As I reached for my pants and shirt, Rachel handed me something else to wear instead. This time, not her business suit, but a short denim skirt, a white pullover, her ankle socks, and a pair of her sneakers. Shrugging, I put on the half slip she gave me, then the rest of the clothes. I was starting to feel pretty silly, but when I mentioned it, Rachel told me I looked fine and was happy I'd play along. Seconds later, all doubt vanished as I merrily sprayed on some of her favorite perfume. Rachel beamed, everything was going exactly as she hoped. After settling into the skirt, things went smoothly. Soon I was humming as Rachel and I cleaned and dusted together. Working side by side felt fun, and within a few hours, everything was spotless. Feeling hungry, I asked what we'd do for dinner. Rachel suggested going out, which sounded great to me. I headed to the bedroom to change, but she called me back. I said I'd put on slacks and a jersey, but she insisted I go dressed as a woman, saying she just knew I'd enjoy it. I tried to resist, but somehow lost control. Before I knew it, my foot was covered in nylon and slipped into one of her low-heeled shoes. I couldn't understand how it happened. I was sure I didn't want to take our game public and was terrified someone might recognize me. But once again, Rachel calmed my fears. Just over an hour later, I was walking into a small spot across town wearing a mid-calf twill skirt and pink top. I swapped the denim skirt and socks for the dressier skirt and stockings, and I was pleasantly surprised when Rachel pulled out a short blonde wig for me. Once she positioned it just right, she quickly did my makeup. Looking in the mirror, Rachel kept saying I made a pretty lady and that we'd have a great time. As usual, she had me convinced, and I actually looked forward to going out like this. Dinner was wonderful, and no one paid any attention to the two women chatting quietly over their meal. Feeling elated after dinner, I was eager when Rachel suggested a shopping trip at the mall. While we shopped, I briefly wondered how I could be dressed as a woman in public and feel completely comfortable. I never found an answer, but wearing the skirt and top felt nice enough that I didn't press the question. Besides, Rachel pointed out a display of adorable outfits, and I was busy hunting for my size. One outfit caught my eye, a black jacket with white jewel button set in gold, paired with a floral skirt in violet, gold, green, and brown hues. A matching scarf was meant to be worn around the neck for accent. Rachel suggested I try it on, and I didn't even hesitate. I found a size that seemed right and headed to the dressing rooms. When I came out, Rachel said I looked so pretty she wanted to buy the outfit for work, and if I liked, she'd let me wear it once in a while for our little game. That sounded like a great deal to me, so I hurried back to change into my own clothes. I tried on 5 or 6 different outfits, each earning Rachel's enthusiastic praise. She made me feel so good I insisted we visit 2 more stores for some window shopping. By the time we got home, I was completely exhausted. I flopped onto the couch, kicked off my heels, wiggled my nylon-covered toes, and burst into giggles. I had gone to dinner, shopped at several women's clothing stores, and even used the ladies' restroom without any issues. I kept thanking Rachel over and over for making it such a wonderful evening and begged her to let me do it again sometime. Rachel smiled a knowing little smile and said she was sure we'd be doing it again in the future. If only I'd known what she had planned. That night, as I got ready for bed, Rachel handed me a sheer white nightgown she'd worn on our honeymoon and asked if I'd please wear it for her. The please was unnecessary. I was already so worked up that I would have begged to wear it. I slipped it on and felt deliciously wicked and sexy, so I started to seduce Rachel. She played along for a while but stopped me when I tried to enter her, saying she wanted to try something different. Curious but trusting, I went along with her plan. What an experience that was! Rachel took me to new heights of pleasure I never knew existed. She showed me there were many ways to reach peak without penetration. Not only that, but she kept me in a state of excitement for longer and longer stretches, granting relief only when it would be mutual. Little did I know I'd never penetrate her again. Unbeknownst to me, Rachel was using the evening as a test to gauge how much control she had over me. When I agreed to go out dressed as a woman and willingly modeled dresses in public, she was fairly certain she had me right where she wanted. Just a few more suggestions to change my thinking, and she'd be ready to pull out all the stops. Having me wear the nightgown from our honeymoon was the first step in testing my acceptance of what was coming, and I fell for it completely. The next morning, after showering, I surprised myself by going straight to Rachel's lingerie drawer and picking out a bra and panties to wear. Then I put on one of her jogging suits, socks, and sneakers. I explained how much more comfortable they felt than my own clothes and asked if she'd put makeup on me. Of course, she agreed and even helped style my short hair into a softer, more feminine look. I made breakfast all by myself, and instead of burying my nose in the sports section of the Sunday paper, I started with the fashion section. After breakfast, I asked if we could head to the video store to rent a few movies. Rachel innocently asked if I planned to go out dressed like I was, and when I said yes, she took me back to our room to make some adjustments. First, she pulled out a wig and fixed my hair. Then, noticing an unladylike bulge, she took a panty girdle from her drawer and told me to remove my jogging pants and pull the girdle up to my hips. After some adjusting, she had me pull it all the way up. At first, it was uncomfortable having my genitals pressed tightly between my legs, but once the bulge was gone, I was grateful for her help. We took our time selecting some romantic movies, then stopped by the supermarket for snacks. I must have looked good because the manager smiled at me several times while we waited to check out. Rachel had trained me well. I even felt flattered that he found me attractive and flashed him a big smile as we left. I was slowly being transformed mentally into a woman without realizing it, and I had no way to resist. Around that time, I noticed I'd lost some weight. My pants were loose at the waist, and my shirts didn't fit well either. My doctor said it wasn't a concern but suggested I take it easy at work. That sounded perfect. I owned my company and had just received a strong buyout offer from a larger firm. If I accepted, neither Rachel nor I would need to work, and we could move to a resort area we loved. The offer was real but played right into Rachel's hands. Without a job tying me down and by relocating, she could push forward with her plans to make a woman out of me. After selling the company, Rachel worked a bit longer, leaving me plenty of free time. Within 2 days of retirement, I found myself wearing Rachel's clothes all day. It felt fun to clean the house and cook dinner in pink jogging shorts and a matching top, which fit better than some of my own clothes. Of course, I wore a light touch of makeup around the house and experimented with different nail polish shades during my free time. About a month later, while taking a shower, I noticed my chest seemed a bit fuller than before. When I mentioned it to Rachel, she was thrilled, delighted that I was actually developing chests. That scared me. After all, I was a guy. I shouldn't be growing chests. Rachel saw my worry and, after a few minutes talking, I felt completely at ease. She said it was probably due to how much I'd been working out lately and that if I kept it up, I'd soon have great muscles. When she jokingly suggested that if the growth continued I'd have something to fill my bra cups with, I actually started to feel excited about the idea. I soon forgot my concerns and was even happy to notice I needed less padding to fill out my bras. Following her advice, I worked out even more, which exposed me to more of the chemical helping Rachel keep me on track. By this time, I was spending so much time in Rachel's clothes that she began teasing me by calling me Valerie. Valerie sounded like such a pretty name that I quickly embraced it and didn't mind when Rachel referred to me as Valerie, her roommate. One day, shortly before our move, I fell ill with a sore throat and fever. A quick checkup revealed a slight growth on my vocal cords that needed removal. Reluctantly, I gave up being Valerie and was admitted to a nearby hospital the next morning. After surgery, I couldn't speak, but the doctor explained this was normal for the procedure I'd had. I was to be released the next day but wouldn't regain my voice for several weeks. While I recovered, we sold our house and prepared to relocate to the resort area. Rachel packed and shipped everything ahead but gave away all my male clothes, saying they no longer fit. I felt down for a few days, not because I was stuck wearing Rachel's clothes, but because I hated leaving our old home. The day before the move, Rachel surprised me with a perm. She had prepared me well, and I didn't make a sound as she cut, dyed, and curled my hair. When she finished, she handed me a mirror and asked for my thoughts. Overwhelmed with emotion, I sat and cried. My blonde curls now nearly touched my collar. I hugged Rachel, tears streaming, wishing only that my throat was better so I could tell her how much I loved my new look. We arrived at our new home without issue and began unpacking. Rachel suggested I work out in my gym while she tidied up. Though I felt guilty leaving her alone, I missed working out, so off I went. Hours later, feeling hot and hungry, Rachel told me to shower while she considered dinner plans. After my shower, my hair looked awful, so Rachel suggested fixing it. Hours of exposure to the chemical had taken their toll, and I eagerly agreed. I read a women's magazine while she rolled my hair into curlers. We discussed dinner options, and Rachel proposed a fancy restaurant nearby. When I protested having nothing to wear, she kindly offered me an outfit. At first, I was a bit sad when she picked out a jacket and skirt set we'd recently bought for her. But my mood lifted when she handed me a low-cut, short black dress with spaghetti straps. Just a few months earlier, I would have thought she was crazy to suggest I wear a dress around the house, let alone out to dinner. But now, I told her the dress was divine and couldn't wait to wear it. Soon, Rachel and I were busy putting on lingerie and makeup, getting ready for a night out. Rachel gave me stunning lingerie, all black nylon and lace. My bra was a strapless, low-cut piece of black lace and satin designed to lift and enhance my chest. It would be perfect with the dress. My panties were light, stretchy black nylon that hugged my hips much like Rachel's. As a special treat, Rachel let me wear sheer black nylons and a garter belt to feel truly sexy. When I put on the bra, I was amazed. My chest filled the cups beautifully, provocatively peeking over the lace trim. I rolled up the nylons, fastened them to the garter belt, slipped into a black half-slip that matched the lingerie, and then I was ready for the dress. The dress had a back zipper that, once Rachel pulled it up, hugged my body perfectly. When I told her the dress was divine, I truly meant it. I felt like I was in heaven, and for some reason, kept thinking about the supermarket manager. Something inside me wanted men to notice me and see me as a sexy, desirable woman. Rachel was ready to do my makeup, but I begged to try it myself. After all, I'd been experimenting for a while and had a clear idea. I wanted to look hot. I finished my makeup, and a glance in the mirror confirmed I was definitely one sexy babe. A spritz of perfume, some jewelry, and a pair of black suede heels completed the look. I felt thrilled to be such a stunning woman. Rachel reinforced my confidence, telling me how pretty I looked, how perfectly the dress fit, and how lucky I was. After all, not every woman could pull off that dress as well as I did. I soaked up the praise and couldn't wait to see how men would react. That evening, after dinner and a bit of window shopping, we impulsively decided to see a play. I carried a small black purse, draped a white shawl around my shoulders for warmth, and did my best to be a classy lady. Rachel was unusually upbeat that night, though I had no idea she felt I had passed my final test. She'd already convinced me to get rid of the slight facial hair so I wouldn't have to bother shaving, and that night showed her I was finally comfortable as a woman. There were still a few details to attend to, but she knew she had taken her overbearing, sexist husband and turned him into a lovely woman. After that night, Rachel worked hard to reinforce her suggestions, making sure I had no desire to be anything but a woman. I'd always known Rachel was determined, and once she set her mind on something, she never quit. Feminizing me was clearly her focus. Once she had me comfortable in my new role, the rest came surprisingly easily. I never even considered buying men's clothes again, the idea seemed distasteful. After all, Rachel and I were both happy with me being Valerie, and it was so much fun, why spoil it? The very next day, we went shopping, and by the time we finished, Valerie had a complete wardrobe, lingerie, jeans, tops, casual dresses and skirts, plus some gorgeous dresses for special occasions. After shopping, I treated myself to a manicure, leg waxing, facial, and even had my ears pierced. I was so proud of my new look, and Rachel was so happy that when my voice finally returned after surgery, it didn't bother me at all that I sounded just like a woman. Later, I learned I never had a growth on my vocal cords, just a bad cold. Rachel had used the illness as an opportunity to have my vocal cords thinned, giving me a woman's voice and shaving my trachea to reduce the prominence of my Adam's apple. Rachel found sitting at home boring, so she opened her own consulting business, a dream she'd always had. When she wondered aloud about keeping the house clean, I immediately volunteered to stay home and make sure everything was perfect for entertaining clients or friends. Rachel's business opened soon after, and I happily stayed home, cleaning, cooking, shopping, embracing the role of the stereotypical suburban housewife. Rachel was thrilled to return to work, and I felt a contentment I'd never known before. Not long after, Rachel asked me to make the house extra nice and plan a special dinner for the weekend. My parents were coming for a housewarming, along with Michael and his wife. The thought of the party shook me more than anything recently. Suddenly, I remembered I was a guy playing housewife, long curly hair, small but noticeable chests, and not a single item of men's clothing in my closet. How could I face them? One day, Rachel found me lying on the bed, crying my eyes out. She held me and reassured me everything would be fine. To distract me, she suggested I go to the gym, saying she was sure I'd feel better quickly. I followed her advice, and after a few minutes, she stopped by to calm my fears. She had a way of making me feel better, and before long, I was actually looking forward to the party. Saturday arrived, and the party was that afternoon. Rachel showered and dressed while I set the table and prepared an elaborate dinner. While the meal cooked, I took a hot shower, shaved my legs and underarms, set my hair, and got dressed for the party. After searching my closet, I chose a black two-piece outfit with sheer sleeves, a low neckline, and a short straight skirt ending just above my knees. I picked matching black lingerie, silky black pantyhose, and a pair of stiletto pumps. I loved how the jacket hugged my curves, the skirt clung tightly to my rounded hips and backside, and how its length drew attention to my legs. I slipped into my heels, removed my curlers, finished my makeup, added jewelry and perfume, then went out to wait with Rachel. The doorbell finally rang, and I followed Rachel to greet our guests. 4 women entered the house, and I immediately recognized my mother and sister-in-law. I was a bit confused about the other 2 women. Rachel took their jackets and left the room, leaving me with the others. My mother hugged me, telling me how pretty I looked and how happy she was for me. Then Diane kissed my cheek and complimented my lovely appearance. Just then, Rachel returned and, smiling at my mother and Diane, asked if they were ready to make the introductions. Mom smiled and told Diane to go first, since I'd already met her friend once and she wanted to save the best for last. Diane's friend did seem familiar, though I struggled to place where I'd seen the pretty blonde before, until Diane revealed her name was Lauren. I stared at the woman for what felt like hours, until Rachel came over and asked me to say hello to her brother. Michael? I asked, stunned. Lauren, the woman corrected softly, her voice sensuous as she kissed my cheek. It's Lauren now. She was stunning, dressed in a forest green, floral print jacket and a short black skirt. From her patent leather pumps to her wavy blonde hair, she was a vision of grace. Her movements were as elegant as a cat's as she took a seat. Before I could say more or ask questions, my mother approached with another friend. "Valerie," my mother said slowly, "I'd like to introduce your Aunt Linda, though you might know her better as your father." "Hello, Valerie," the woman said softly. "I'm glad everything worked out for you. You're quite an attractive woman." I couldn't stop staring. The woman before me had shoulder-length brunette hair styled elegantly for a middle-aged woman, and wore a lilac, long-sleeved knit dress with stockings and pumps. As I looked closer, I recognized features of my dad beneath the makeup. She wore gold hoop earrings, a 3-strand gold necklace, and a woman's ring set with my dad's birthstone. Rachel, Diane, and my mother sat on the couch while Lauren, Linda, and I sat opposite them. They took turns explaining what had been done to us and why. It began as Rachel's idea, aimed at me. After almost 8 years of marriage, she couldn't change my macho attitude toward women despite trying hard. At the hypnotism demonstration, the idea struck her: the only way I'd change was if I could see life through a woman's eyes. During a break, she mentioned this to Diane and my mother, who shared similar struggles with their husbands. All agreed it was a great plan, and Rachel proposed it to the hypnotist, who provided the means for post-hypnotic suggestions. The women tried to reach us through those suggestions, but our minds were too stubborn. That's when Rachel's friend suggested the chemical that would help break through our resistance. Rachel was first to try the chemical and was thrilled with the results. I stopped spouting weird remarks and began helping around the house. But Rachel didn't think housework was enough recompense for years of trouble, so she devised her plan to turn me into Valerie. Never one for half measures, Rachel pushed ahead with the details of feminizing me. The frilly apron had been her idea, and when it worked, she whispered the code word to me one morning and gave me her panties to wear. Next came the nightgown, then outfits for around the house. Our lovemaking sessions were rewards for positive responses, appealing to a primal instinct in me and helping the suggestions stick. We also took female hormones, which made it easier to adjust to being treated as women and reshaped our bodies. One day, Rachel mentioned my progress to Diane and my mother. After a brief discussion, they decided to apply the same to Rachel's brother and my father. They were much easier to influence and soon well on their way to becoming women. The night I first met Lauren was her public debut, considered a smashing success by Rachel and Diane. It took Rachel a bit more effort to break me down from there, but it wasn't long before I too was out in public as a woman. Since Dad had retired early, Mom had more time to work on him. She said once he got started, he offered no resistance. In less than 2 months, he was wearing nothing but nylon and lace. A month later, Mom and Dad joined a singles group and were having the time of their lives traveling the country as 2 middle-aged women. Their group held weekly dances, which they never missed and always had escorts for. I invited Lauren and Linda into the kitchen to help with dinner and catch up on everything that had happened to us. We had a wonderful time laughing, gossiping, and getting to know each other as women. Surprisingly, after such a short time, I felt closer to these two than ever before. Linda kept us entertained with funny stories about the men she had dated and how she handled their advances. Lauren was non-stop laughter, sharing how working as Rachel's sales representative had been surprisingly easy. Men were eager to buy lunch for such an attractive woman, and she hadn't had to buy many meals herself. Our conversation continued over dinner as our wives filled in some missing details about our transformations. It turned out Lauren had recently had a vasectomy, during which we were removed and slow-release female hormone implants replaced our private organs. The vitamins we took each morning were actually female hormones designed to supplement the implants and encourage secondary female characteristics like wider hips and chest growth. Dad, believing he was undergoing prostate surgery as well. He responded so well to the hormones and hypnotism that after 6 months, he chose to have chest enhancement surgery. Proudly cupping his 36C chests, he stirred a hint of jealousy in me. Right then, I decided to talk to Rachel about getting implants. I was done with padded bras and wanted chests that could truly fill C cups. That's how 3 women, fed up with their husbands' attitudes, decided that transforming us into women was the best thing for us, and I'm sure Lauren and Linda would agree that we're grateful they did. Don't forget to join me on Patreon for exclusive content.